Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into something you've probably seen a million times, but maybe you haven't really thought about: the cross.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a symbol with a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Exactly. We're using this excerpt, the cross, a symbol of ultimate sacrifice, redemption, and hope, to kind of guide our deep dive here. I'm super curious to get into this with you.
Should be fascinating.
So, okay, first things first. The cross was like a tool of torture.
Yeah, brutal execution.
Like the Romans, they really were the masters of making death awful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was meant to be the worst possible way to go. Humiliating, painful, the whole 9 yards, reserved for the worst criminals.
Yeah.
To really just dehumanize them completely.
And that's what makes it so crazy when you think about it in the context of Christianity.
Right.
Why would someone believed to be divine choose to die like that?
Well, that's really where you get to the core of the Christian idea of love.
Right.
The excerpt really emphasizes that Jesus, even though he was sinless, he chose this death. Like, he fully embraced that human suffering.
It's just mind-blowing when you think about it like
Yeah.
that. This wasn't just some random accident, you know?
No.
It was a choice. And that changes everything.
And the excerpt brings up this verse from Philippians 2:8,
Okay?
which says, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross."
Wow.
Like, there's just so much power in that statement.
Yeah. Like, it kind of changes the way we think about strengths and power.
For sure.
This is where it gets even more complicated, though, right? Because being hung on a tree, like in the Jewish tradition, that was seen as a curse from God. So how does that fit in?
Well, that is the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the way Christian theology explains it is that Jesus, although he was innocent, he took on the curse of humanity's sin by dying on the cross,
Ah, okay.
which of course was made of wood.
So he was taking the punishment that we deserved.
Yeah, it's like this cosmic exchange. It's almost too incredible to believe.
Yeah.
But, Galatians 3:13 says basically that Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us.
Whoa. Okay. Lots to unpack there.
Yeah.
But I think we got to tackle another big question, and that's, how can a just God also be a merciful one? Like, those two ideas, they seem kind of at odds, don't they?
Yeah, and it's a question that has fascinated theologians for centuries.
Really?
But the Crucifixion, it really provides an answer, a way to understand how justice and mercy can kind of come together.
Okay. How so?
Well, the excerpt explains it like this. God's justice demands that sin has consequences.
Right.
You can't just ignore it.
Okay.
But at the same time, God's mercy, it yearns for reconciliation.
So the cross satisfies both.
Exactly.
That's power.
Jesus, by taking the punishment for sin, he fulfills that demand for justice, but he does it willingly out of love for humanity, which is the purest expression of mercy.
I'm starting to see why the cross is such a powerful symbol, because it touches on such profound ideas about God
About God's character.
and his relationship with us.
It's the focal point for understanding how deep his love is and how far he was willing to go to fix that relationship with us.
It reminds me of that verse in Romans. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's wow.
It's just this poignant reminder that even though we're imperfect, we screw up, we're still loved.
Yeah. But the excerpt doesn't stop with the crucifixion.
Right.
It really emphasizes that the cross isn't just about death, it's about what comes after.
And that's where the resurrection is so important. It's not just tacked on, it's the foundation of hope.
So the cross becomes like a path to something more.
Exactly. It's the path to new life, to victory over death itself. Without the resurrection, the cross would just be defeat, despair. But with it, it becomes the symbol of ultimate triumph.
This is where it starts to feel really personal, right? When we talk about taking up your cross. What does that even mean?
Well, it means understanding that the Christian life isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about facing challenges head on, knowing that they lead to growth and transformation.
So it's about embracing the tough stuff,
Yeah,
those crosses we have to bear, and finding meaning in them.
you got it. And it goes right back to Jesus himself. He didn't shy away from suffering. He embraced it knowing it was the path to something greater.
But there's also the idea of selfless love, right?
Yeah.
It's a love story like no other.
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't romantic love or even family love. This is about a love that sacrifices everything, even life, for the good of others.
Can you imagine loving someone that much? It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It defies human logic. But John 15:13 sums it up perfectly. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends.
Wow, that one just gets you right in the heart.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we express love in our own lives. What does selfless love look like day to day?
It's a question worth thinking about. It takes us beyond the theology and into how we actually live.
You're right, we could talk about the cross forever.
Yeah.
But it's really about how we live out what it means,
Yeah.
which I think is a perfect segue to our next point.
Yeah, I agree. It's time to look at how the cross went from being this symbol of shame and brutality to a symbol of hope, not just for early Christians facing persecution, but for people throughout history, even today. I mean, it is kind of wild when you think about it, that a symbol that comes from such a dark place could become a symbol of hope.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? You'd think it'd be like forever tied to pain and suffering and all that. So like, how did that happen? How did it change so much?
Well, I think the resurrection is key here.
Okay.
Without it, the cross would just be like a symbol of defeat.
Yeah.
But with the resurrection, it becomes, proof that death doesn't have the final say.
So it's not just about like Jesus dying. It's about him overcoming death.
Exactly. And that victory offers a huge assurance to believers that they can overcome the challenges of life, even death, through faith.
So it's almost like the cross becomes this link between suffering and hope, between death and new life.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. And that message was especially powerful for those early Christians who were being persecuted. Imagine you're surrounded by people who hate you for what you believe. You could even be killed for it.
I could see how the cross would be a powerful symbol of strength in that situation. Like, okay, I can get through this.
Absolutely. It reminded them that suffering wasn't the end, that even when things were really bad, there was this promise of something much greater.
It's so interesting how a symbol can have such different meanings for different people depending on their situation.
Yeah.
Like for the Romans, the cross was the ultimate punishment. But for the early Christians, it was a sign of hope, a sign of defiance.
It just shows how meaning can be so fluid and contextual.
Yeah.
And speaking of context, I think it's important to think about how a cross resonates with us today.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, most of us aren't, being thrown to the lions or anything, but we all deal with hard stuff. So does the cross still have meaning for us today?
I believe it does. We may not be facing literal death for our beliefs, but we all face pain, loss, disappointment, the hard things of life. And I think in those times, the cross can still give us a sense of hope.
It's a reminder that, we're not alone in our struggles. Even when things are really dark, there's still a promise of something better.
Exactly. And that connects with the idea of taking up our own cross, which the excerpt talks about. It's not just an event in history or some theological idea. It's a call to action.
Okay, so what does that look like in real life? Like, how do we take up our cross?
Well, it means embracing challenges when they come. Choosing to act with love and compassion even when it's hard. It's about trying to live the way Jesus did on the cross.
So it's not about like going out and looking for suffering. It's about going through the tough stuff with purpose and grace.
You got it. And recognizing that sometimes the most growth happens when we're struggling. Think about it like this, like a seed, It has to be buried in the dark soil before it can sprout and grow. Our challenges can be like that. They can help us transform, help us grow into something new.
That's a really cool way to think about it. And it all goes back to what the cross represents, doesn't it? Hope, even when we're going through tough times.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how the cross can mean so many different things at the same time. It's suffering, yeah, but it's also sacrifice, redemption, love.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It's death, but it points to life. It's pain, but it offers hope.
Yes.
It's like this crazy paradox.
Yeah, a paradox that people have been wrestling with for centuries. I think that's part of why it's so powerful. It makes us ask those big questions about life and faith and what it all means.
It doesn't give us easy answers, but it does, give us a way to think about our own struggles, a way to make sense of them.
And it reminds us that we're not alone. Others have walked this path before us. We can draw strength from them.
Well, we've covered a lot today. And I feel like I have a totally new understanding of the cross and everything it stands for.
It's something you can spend your whole life exploring, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's always something more to discover, some deeper meaning to uncover.
For sure. But before we go, we want to hear from you. What's stuck with you today? Any new insights? What questions are you still thinking about?
The journey of faith is a lot like exploring the cross.
Yeah,
It's all about constantly searching, asking questions, going deeper.
that's a perfect way to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the symbolism of the cross. We hope you learned something new and that you'll keep exploring this powerful symbol on your own. Until next time, keep searching, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.